Regina, Mater misericordiae, vita dulcedo, estes nostra salve.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. When Jesus had finished all his words to the people, he entered Capernaum. A centurion there had a slave who was ill and about to die, and he valued him dearly. When he heard about Jesus, he sent elders of the Jews to him, asking him to come and save the life of his slave. They approached Jesus and strongly urged him to come, saying, "He deserves to have you do this for him, for he loves our nation, and he built the synagogue for us." And Jesus went with them. But when he was only a short distance from the house, the centurion sent friends to tell him, "Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy to have you enter under my roof. Therefore, I did not consider myself worthy to come to you, but say the word, and let my servant be healed. For I too am a person subject to authority, with soldiers subject to me. And I say to one, go, and he goes, to another, come here, and he comes. And to my slave, do this, and he does it." When Jesus heard this, he was amazed at him, and turning, said to the crowd following him, "I tell you, not even in Israel have I found such faith." When the messengers returned to the house, they found the slave in good health. The Gospel of the Lord. Welcome to our friends from the East, from Trinity High School. Beautiful to see you here this morning. We celebrate the feast of Saints Cyprian and Cornelius, martyrs. And when they were facing their fate, a certain Galerius Maximus was confronting Cyprian, and he said to him, of course, Cyprian had denied and denounced the gods of Rome, the lesser gods, of course, and Galerius is saying that he is a heretic. It's interesting how the words get kind of reversed. He's a heretic because he believes in Christ. That's interesting. And so Galerius says to him, "Consider your position." And Cyprian looks at him and says, "Follow your orders. In such a case, there is no need for deliberation." In other words, Cyprian knows what's coming. He's made up his mind, and he's not dying for gods that are not God. And so Galerius says, "It is decided that Thascius Cyprian should die by the sword." And Cyprian's response, "Thanks be to God." Wow. That's faith. I can almost hear Cyprian in the background in his mind saying, "What's the guy going to do to me? Kill me and send me to heaven?" What's wrong with that? Sometimes things don't always go the way we planned. We were hoping for something else. Surely it was this way with Cyprian and Cornelius, and surely it was the same way with this centurion, an unplanned illness of his servant, about whom he was troubled. And he wants to encounter Jesus, but he doesn't believe he's worthy. And Jesus breaks all the barriers. And although he is apparently not worthy, Jesus makes an entrance into his life. When I read that this morning, I thought, all right, there's even hope for me. When I think I'm not worthy, Jesus makes an entrance. But even though Jesus makes an entrance, it's not always as we had planned. And so when things don't go my way, through no fault of my own, there's only one thing that can be done. That is to trust in Jesus. If it's not because of me, it must be in the hands of God. And so sometimes we need to trust that. St. Paul tells us in his letter to the Romans that all things work for the good for those who love God. For Cyprian and Cornelius, it didn't look good to the world, but it really looked good for their canonization and their place in heaven. And for this centurion, his servant's suffering was not what he'd planned, and he wasn't sure of the outcome, but he trusted Jesus. St. Paul says, though, all things work for the good for those who love God and are called into his plan. A lot of people take out part of that verse, the part about called into his plan. And so it's become a kind of a popular saying, well, it all works out for the good. No, it doesn't. You could end up in hell. That's not good. All things work for the good for those who love God and are called into his plan, because God understands the beauty of goodness and the good of all, and he understands the good for each one of us. And in Jesus we see that even sometimes there's good to be had in suffering. Some of you who are skeptical about the suffering, just think of the suffering your parents have done for your education. Sometimes suffering is good and noble. In the case of Cyprian and Cornelius, the suffering of martyrdom was good and noble and heroic, because they would let nothing compromise their faith in Jesus Christ. And for us, as Catholics and Christians, our faith in Jesus Christ is the most important thing, because everything on this planet is going to be in the ground 6 feet under. But we have something to look forward to in heaven, where the resurrection of the body will come to its fruition, and we have the gift of eternity. And so, like Cyprian and Cornelius, we won't trade that for anything, will we? Will you?
Regina Celi, letare, alleluia, qui aquam meruisti portare, alleluia, resurrectio